What's up guys, Omega here and welcome back to GT7 for another lap guide, this one bringing us to Brands Hatch GP layout in the Group 4 cars. We're going to be using the Supra today as that is the dominant car on the leaderboard by a long shot, so you want to be using this car at least for qualifying. I think in the race most people are using the Alpha 4C. And it looks like the quickest option for the race is a no stop. Fuel is not an issue, but tyre wear you may need to manage. We also have dampers and brake balance available, so a little bit of suspension tuning, which I will cover in this video as well. And if you are looking for a ghost to chase, then in Showcase just search for the tag Omega and you'll be able to add this to your collection and watch it or use it as your ghost. And if you don't know how to do that, I will leave a video at the end of this one which shows you how to do that. So first things first, with the setup, I adjusted the damping ratio slightly. I lowered both the front and rear compression damping ratio and lowered the front expansion ratio and increased or stiffened the rear expansion damping ratio. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this. This may not be the ideal setup, but it's something that you can run. I just found that softening the suspension a bit, particularly out the front, allowed me to attack some of these quite big curbs a little bit more comfortably. And we're also running a +2 brake balance. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into the lap guide. So starting off our lap, we start around this point, the corner just before you go over the start finish line, and trying to get a good run around this corner if you can. I short shift a little bit up to 4th gear just to allow me to get on the power a little bit earlier. And starting off your lap in time trial, you want to be over to the left-hand side of the track. And coming up to the first corner, it is very, very tricky, this corner. It may take you some time to get used to. Definitely, I know every time this track comes up for me, it does take me a few times to get used to it again. And what we're looking for on this first corner is the middle board on your left hand side as your braking point. I'm braking just after that and turning in at the same time, shifting down to 3rd gear to try and get as close to the inside apex on the right as possible. And once I feel the car bite into the corner nicely, then I short shift up to 4th gear, back on the power, and use this dip in the track to really maximize your speed out of turn 1. You kind of have to be very brave because you can go a lot faster here than you think you can. So a good rule of thumb that I try to use is that I push it to the point where it feels like I'm going to go just over the limit. And because of the dip in the track, it kind of pulls you back onto the track where normally you would run off on another circuit. This does take a lot of getting used to, but with some practice, I'm sure you can get it. And coming up to turn 2, what I'm looking for my braking marker is the sign that goes over the track, braking right at that sign and shifting all the way down to 1st gear. I found that the car feels like it pulls up a lot quicker than I first expected for this corner. About midway through the corner, I short shift back up to 3rd gear and get back on the power nice and early, let the soft tires do their job and help pull you around the corner. There should be plenty of grip. The Supra isn't 4-wheel drive, so it still will kick out on you if you do it too early, but it's generally pretty good. Using all the available runoff on the exit, getting the car back over to the right hand side for this next left-hander. I shift up to 4th very momentarily, and then as I pass this little sign on the right hand side of the track, applying about 50% braking and shifting back down to 3rd gear and back on the power around the time I hit the apex on the inside, using all of the available runoff on the right hand side. I feel like the suspension tuning did help this a little bit because it can be quite a deadly curb. If you hit it at the wrong angle and you've got the power down, it spun me out quite a few times. And then just on the power up into this next corner, which is kind of like a hairpin, I suppose. And looking at this last board on your right hand side as your braking reference. And I'm trying to leave the turn in a little bit late for this one, shifting down to 2nd gear, back up to 3rd gear very shortly after. And around this line coming across the track, you want to be back at full acceleration and try and get a nice exit out of there. Just revving the car out. You don't really need to short shift this one. And coming up to this next right-hander, what you're looking for is the middle board. Once again, just after that point is where I start braking and turning in. I shift down to 3rd gear and then straight back up to 4th. The reason I do this is more to do with knowing that by the time I shift back up to 4th, I can get back on the power straight away. Sticking to the left-hand side of the track for this next right-hander and looking for the first board on your left for this one. Braking just after that first board, shifting down to 3rd gear, and just before the second board is when I start to turn in, taking a decent chunk of the inside curb, shifting back up to 4th gear before I hit this inside curb. This is a corner where the suspension, again, I think helps a little bit, just having it a little bit softer and taking quite a decent chunk of it, using all of the available runoff, keeping it in 4th gear. And for this next right-hander, we're looking for in between these 2 boards on the right-hand side of the track where the fence turns green. That's when I start applying a little bit of brake. At this last board is when you want to start turning in and shift down to 3rd gear quite aggressively. I shift back up to 4th gear and back on the power before I hit this inside apex, taking a massive chunk out of this one. And I do run a little bit wide there on the exit. You ideally, obviously, don't want to touch that grass. Try to get the car over to the right-hand side again. And in between these two boards is where I start braking, pretty much just right in the middle. Start turning in just as you go past the second sign on your right. I shift down to second gear for the rotation, back up to third and back on the power before I hit the inside apex. Trying to carry as much speed as we can, getting the car over to the left-hand side of the track for this last corner. And what we're looking for as our braking reference is in between the second and the last board on your left-hand side. I get on the brakes quite hard and then shift down to third gear and try to get the car to meet the apex on the inside. Shifting back up to fourth just before I hit it and back on the power. And this corner is kind of similar to the first one. It has that kind of dip in the road and you have to practice it quite a bit and get used to it until you can take it really confidently. A similar sort of thing, you want to push it so it feels like you're just about to go over the edge and the track will kind of pull you back in towards where you want to be on the track. And then try to get the car back over to the right hand side to shorten the distance to the finish line. And that one's good for a 128.450. So that's around a second off the world record at the moment, maybe just a little bit over. It's nothing special, but it will give you a rough guide. And what I'll do now is I'll play that back in full speed so you can see it in real time. If you did get any value out of today's video, let me know by dropping a like on it and subscribe to the channel. Good luck out there. Thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.